Hi everyone. Um, this video is different from what I was originally planning to make. I'm still gonna make, I talked about my last video, I feel like a robot, that I was planning on doing a different video. I'm still planning on that one, just not yet. Um, this is something I kind of just want to make, like, off the top of my head. I was trying just thinking about right now. So I don't have any notes for this. I'm just gonna, yeah, just go, yeah, straight off the noggin, and there might be some pauses and some time for me to think, but I'm just trying to collect my thoughts and uh, say them. Yeah, so what I was thinking about this today is it's a pretty universal fear, although some people have it more than others, um, but it's the fear of failure. And I was thinking about that today because today my next semester of college starts, and you know, I'm kind of anxious, and I'm kind of just, thinking to myself, what am I anxious about? And I think it goes back to this fear that I have, which is just a fear of failure and fear of embarrassment as well. But those two tie together. If I'm embarrassing myself, I'm failing, and if I'm failing, I'm probably going to embarrass myself too. Just as a result of that, as a consequence. But I think about a lot of my life, I've been afraid of failing at things, and I haven't tried to do a lot of things early, or at least for most of my life, because I was afraid of the failure of it. Um, I kind of think of like how shy I used to be as a child, and I was afraid of putting myself out there and failing, and so I didn't do that for a long time, and not until about the middle of middle school. So that's about seventh grade for me, because I went to middle school for sixth through eighth grade. Um, so yeah, about like seventh, eighth grade is when I started to actually come out of my shell more and not feel this fear of failure. And I felt like I haven't had that feel of failure until a few years ago, until senior year. Um, I had felt pretty great, and I had done a lot to work up to the point I was at where I wasn't as afraid of failure. I was a lot more outgoing and not afraid to do things. Until senior year, when my OCD got really bad, I just regressed on a lot of levels, a lot of things I regressed at, and that fear of failure came back. Um, so I started being, a lot more afraid to talk to people, especially women or girls and stuff like that. A bit, I still carry that fear too. I feel like oftentimes, uh, what I am is not enough, and I won't be able to provide enough for somebody to want to date me, and so I'm afraid of failing at dating, so I don't even really try to do it. Um, I'm afraid of working too. I've had one job, and uh, I made a couple of good friends at that job, and one of them told me that I did a really great job it was a seasonal job, but he told me that I did a really great job there. But I felt like while I worked there and after, like I didn't do a good job at it. Yeah, it was my first job, but like I don't want to I hate like putting up excuses, and I guess it's not really an excuse, but it kind of would make sense that somebody's first job, they wouldn't be the best at it in the world, but um, in my head, I looked at it kind of as an excuse. At least that's just the way my brain looks at it. And I kind of feel that way about a lot of things, like with baseball, when I was playing baseball this year, whenever I failed, there are reasons why it makes sense that I would fail, because, I'm playing at like a high level when I haven't actually played before. I've just played baseball on my own in the background, um, and I became very skilled at it, but I never actually played with anyone. So it made sense that there'd be adjustment period. But the way my brain works, I don't want to have any excuses for it, and so it hurts a lot to fail. And it just makes me miserable whenever I'm failing at stuff in life. And I've often, for the past 3 years up until now, felt like a lot of the stuff that's happened to me, I have been failures, and I've been failing in life. Although I don't feel that way anymore, but for the past 3 years, a lot of the stuff that has happened, or I felt have been failures, or failures of mine. And part of that led to, extreme self-doubt and self-deprecation, along with, all the OCD that I was going through. But, I think about, um, this fear of failure and why people have it. And, it makes sense that people have it. It's a failure, it's a very, or at least this fear, it makes sense because when we were, you know, cavemen, failure would often mean that we would be killed. Um, and that fear would lead us to do things, at least to not do things more. So, um, choose to not do certain actions so we wouldn't be killed. And it was a safety precaution. It's a safety measure in our brain. But evolution is very slow, and it's a part of our brain that hasn't really left. We're still afraid of failure, even though it doesn't mean death. Although, in most circumstances today, a lot of failure is social failures. And it's kind of, instead of death, though, we are now afraid of, if it's a physical death, we are more afraid of a social death. We're afraid of failing in front of people. We're afraid of embarrassing ourselves and letting others down. That's another thing that I'm afraid of. I think the most is letting others down. If I fail at baseball, I feel terrible because I feel like I've failed my team, and a reason I'm afraid of even like getting a job, even having a job, even though like I apply for jobs. Part of me, I've got to admit, kind of hopes I don't even get the job because I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of letting others down, especially if that job has a lot of weight to it and there's a lot of things on the line. Same thing that goes to a relationship. I'm afraid of letting somebody down as well, but I'm also afraid of letting myself down. And it's kind of like this, serpent eating its own tail or whatever. Where I let myself down if I do not, try to do something new or try to approach something that I haven't done before. I'm letting myself down if I'm not trying. So it's kind of like, yeah, this never-ending battle right there. But I think back to when my life was before I had my OCD was so bad. It was really bad for a while, but then I got really good, and then it got really bad again. But I think at that time in the middle, when it was really good, and I try to remember what it was like to not be so afraid of failure, and I think that was the most secure I've ever felt in myself. So feelings of failure also come from insecurity, I believe. This fear of failure. You're kind of insecure about what you're able to do and what could happen, and I kind of feel that, like, I feel like I do have confidence issues in a lot of areas of my life because there's always that what if in the back of your mind that you don't do something right, or you don't hear someone right, you don't do the directions correctly. And so I was never confident in my job because of this. Even if I did something right, I always felt unconfident in what I was doing and the performance of my work. And it's something that I feel in a lot of things in life. The only thing I really don't feel that way in is like literally just doing work at school. Just because, I've always been a good student, but it's like things that are kind of new to me, man. It's, there's obviously that fear of failure, and that can end up getting to me. And it stops you from trying, which I think is a bad thing. I think you should always try. And I think it's always good to look at things in perspective too, and force yourself to do new things. Force yourself to talk to people, force yourself to approach people. I think that's a good thing to do. I think of that time in high school. I was in a fight in high school, and I thought to myself after, I just got fucking picked up and thrown against the wall and got my face punched a few times by this dude who's double my size. And I survived and ended up attacking him and breaking his glasses and make him cry. So if I'm able to do that, if I'm able to match up to someone double my size in a physical fight and make it out, why am I afraid of these little things that aren't physical harm? And, I think that's a good way to think of things is, you're not physically harmed. So what's the fear? But I think I know what that fear is. And it ties back to social death. That in our society has become a lot more important somehow, or seen as more scary than an actual physical punishment or physical pain or even maybe even death. Now you have to live with waking up and every day and being around people who are judging you or you feel are judging you, who think you're a failure, and that you have to actually feel that. You know, after you die, I mean, you feel that for a split second. You don't feel it anymore because you're dead. But I mean, you have to feel this every day, and I think that's, you know, some of where that fear comes from. You know, there's that social death element. As we live in such a social world, everyone's so connected with the internet, or um, yeah. I mean, I just yeah, just there's way more people nowadays. Bigger cities, bigger states, and countries, and more people. People are connected from the internet again. So yeah, there's always that social element to it. And I think it's the way to get over that is really just exposing yourself to your fears. I don't think you'll ever get anywhere in life by backing down. Life is all about doing things and facing your fears. Because if you don't do that, you end up living a very miserable life. And I've learned that over the past 3 years dealing with OCD and doing exposure and response therapy for OCD. And that's also taught me that you will come across failure while trying to, face your fears, but that shouldn't discourage you. That should end up encouraging you to try even harder. Um, for example, like if a girl rejects you, that's just one instance of a woman rejecting you. That doesn't mean that every woman's going to reject you. It's such a small sample size. It shouldn't mean anything, but it means a lot to us. It makes you not want to try anymore, especially for men. Um, I kind of think about like, uh, we really end up having experiences in our lives that change the way we look at other people and look at the world and how society and people work and the world works. And our opinions change based off our experiences. And sometimes that's wrong because a lot of these experiences are such low sample sizes. Um, for example, like there was this time I was talking to this girl and everything seemed to be going fine. And then she just, stopped talking to me and unfollowed me out of nowhere. And, a lot of people will have that happen to them, and um, they'll think, maybe something like, oh man, women are all the same. They're all like this. I'll never be able to find a girlfriend. But in reality, that's just one person. And even if that is true, that most are like that, that doesn't mean that everyone's like that, and that doesn't mean that you should give up. Because you're now giving up on yourself and your ability to find somebody out there. Because to you, the chances are smaller of finding that right person because you think a lot of people are similar and would do the same to you. But just the fact there's a chance there's somebody out there that won't do you like that should inspire you to want to keep searching. But yeah, that's just kind of my rambling off the top of my head about fears of failure and stuff. So let me know if you guys have any similar experiences or fears or whatever, and what your thoughts are. And so let's do the song of the day. I've been listening to Do the Panic by Phantom Planet recently, but I've been listening to the demo version a lot, the version that's on their Negatives album. So I'm going to choose that version. Yeah, that's about it.